So now we're going to go ahead and jump into ellipses, which is 10.4 out of your book. But before we start, I'd like you to go ahead and graph this guy right here. This comes from the previous section that we just worked. So hit pause on the video and sketch the graph of this thing on your paper. So you should have drawn a circle with a radius of 5. I know that this is the equation of a circle, x squared plus r squared equals, or x squared plus y squared equals r squared. So I'm going to go and sketch my circle in like this. That length is 5 and this length is 5. Now, I want to take this guy and change the way it looks a little bit and divide by this 25 on both sides so that I can get a 1 over here. So I'm going to get x squared. If I divide, actually I'll show all the work. I'm going to divide this by 25, I'm going to divide this by 25, and I'm going to divide this by 25. So I'm going to divide everything by 25. Notice that cancels to give me 1. So what I wind up getting is x squared over 25 plus y squared over 25 is equal to 1. And now what I want to point out is that my circle, you know, when we had it in this form, this original form, it was like, oh, radius is 5, so I go 5, 5, make my center there, and build my circle out. What I want you to notice is that if I divide everything by 25, then the x squared lands over at 25, which kind of indicates to me how far I go this way. And then the y squared also lands, or has a 25 land underneath of it. So take the square root of that number, and that tells you that I go up and down 5. So what I want you to see is that a new equation just popped up, and I've got a little spot to graph it. And if we go back to what I just said, you know, this guy kind of indicated this distance, and this guy kind of indicated this distance. Well, I can look at this here in the same way. You know, I think that up and down, this piece is going to stay the same because my y squared still has that 25 with it. So I'm going to mark my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Put a dot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Put a dot. That's going to stay the same and make things so that it goes up and down 25. I could show that mathematically by making, this is where x is 0. So if I make x 0 in this equation, I get 0 squared over 4 plus y squared over 25 equals 1. And notice 0 squared over 4 is going to be 0, so we'll scratch it out. And then I've got y squared over 25 is 1. So how do I make a fraction equal to 1? Well, I make the top and the bottom the same thing. And so notice that if I make that x equal to 0, then the only way to make y fit would be to make y positive 5, which would put it here, or to make y negative 5 because the negative squares out and would land it there. So now that we know that it goes up and down 25, I'm going to look at what happens with the side to side. Before, that side to side was kind of indicated by this, so now I've got a 4 underneath of there. Well, I took the square root of the 25 to figure out how far up and down it went, so I'm going to take the square root of the 2 to figure out how far side to side it goes, because that's with the x. So square root 4, that gives me 2, 1, 2, put a dot, 1, 2, put a dot. And the same math should make sense, so I'll sketch in, and then I just, from there, I kind of fill in, you know, make it nice and curved, which gives me a nice ellipse or an oval, as some of you may think about it. But what I want to point out is that the same math works. These spots that I just filled in right here have a height of 0, so their y value is 0. So if I make y equal to 0, I get x squared over 4 plus 0 squared over 25 equals 1. This goes away because it's 0. And then I've got the same thing. I've got a fraction that's equal to 1. How do I make the fraction equal to 1? Make the top and the bottom the same. How do I make the top the same as the bottom? Well, I could take 2, which would be this spot with a height of 0, or negative 2, which would be this spot with a height of 0. So So it should make sense that it lands on those spots, but you can see that it's really easy to identify those spots based on the equation. So now I got another one here, and I want you to try this one. It says x squared over 25 plus y squared over 9 equals 1. So it's kind of another variation of this thing, but the other way. So I'd like you to pause the video again and see if you can sketch this right now. Alright, so hopefully you started by drawing your grid. You went, you looked at the x's. You saw that there's a 25 and this only works if there's a 1 there. It's kind of I showed with that fraction stuff above. But since I got my 1 there, I got 25 here, so I square root it. That means that I go side to side 5 on my x's. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Dot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Dot. And now I'm going to go look at the y term. And since I've got a 9 here and a y squared on the top, means that I got to go up and down 3. 1, 2, 3. Dot. 1, 2, 3. Dot. And then I just fill it in like that. So hopefully that is what you did when you paused the video. So these are the 4 problems that I want you to do real quick on your paper. It may take a couple minutes to do them. This one should be pretty straightforward. These guys don't have a 1, so you got to figure out how to get rid of the 36 and the 100 to deal into, you want to make it look like this. So I'll let you try to figure out how to do that yourself. And then the last one I'm going to talk about, but you should do it after this one, is this one right here. So I got x squared plus y squared over 16 equals 1. And this problem sometimes confuses people because you're like, oh, well, I see what the y squared goes with, but what number goes with the x squared here? Well, I could write anything, any number, over 1 and have it still be itself. So hopefully doing that helps you figure out how to graph that guy. So graph these guys, and then there's some more videos for you to keep rocking through after you have that done.